welcome to the Ordo Sonitus Lux YouTube. This is Solaris, and today I am doing a month ahead spread for December. Now, month ahead spreads are something that I've been doing for a while for myself. I have two different ones that I do every month. One is a highly personal, where am I at right now? What do I need to focus on? Where am I going to be going for the month? And anything special I need to watch out for. So it always has 4 segments. I bring in multiple decks for this, and it's been a really useful thing for me. But something that I had started more recently was doing a more generalized, what are things I need to look out for in the greater world around me. And so this isn't like the, let's, predict the next thing of the panini, but this is more of a, what kind of energies are going to be really prevalent, what kind of forces are going to be at play, what kind of things would be good to focus on in this time. So there's still some of those personalized aspects, and I know because of that, it's not going to apply to everyone. I'm not doing one of these multiple stack, pick a card things. I might do one in the future. They are incredibly complicated, and it's been something I've been playing with, but I'm not feeling it yet. So for now, this is going to be a general, what does December have in store for us? Now for this, so we aren't staring at a blank screen anymore, I've got my decks picked out of which ones want to work on this with me. So first up is going to be the Marigold Tarot, and this is the standard edition of the Marigold Tarot with the black edging. I do, at some point, I would really like to get the gilded edging, but this was the one that I could afford at the time, and I'd wanted that deck forever. So, first deck. Second deck, which I found pairs really well with the Marigold Tarot, is the Flowers of the Night Oracle. Now, this has been a gentle but forward guide, where it says, it doesn't avoid the hard truths, but it really does give it in a way where it doesn't feel like you're getting beaten up, which is nice. Also, I am bringing out the Threads of Fate Oracle in the Rose Edition. This is the black and gold one that you all saw in my previous week ahead reading. A deck I've really been experimenting with a lot lately is the Mystic Mondays Crystal Grid deck. Now, I don't use this for crystal grids. I use this more to pull what kind of energies need to be brought to the forefront, what kind of things need to be focused on. I do use crystals a lot in my working, and my casting set has a good number of rocks in it, and I like pulling these, and they have this really cool hexagonal shape and really, really great photographs of all the stones, unlike some of the other decks out there. I'll give a review of that at some point. And lastly, of course, I'm going to be pulling from the Torvinius Goetia deck, and as you can see, I don't use the box. The box has a lot of extra space in it for a lot of extra goodies and things that I don't use. So I've actually put my deck in this bag that I have, and that's where I keep it. So without further ado, let's get to pulling these cards and seeing what the month of December has in store for us. Alright, so let's see what December has in store for us. What kind of things do we have to look out for in December? So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to draw all of the cards. So we've got our big picture before I really start talking about all of the meanings of what I see here. I want to kind of get a good sense of what we're looking at first, because context matters. And there are times where as I pull cards, I will read them. Anyone who's had a live reading from me will know that I do that. Should have possibly rearranged my space before I started, but here we are. Let's see here. Let's see here. How do I want to space these? Go ahead first. I want the words to be visible. As I said, this is going to be a general overview of, that went flying out, of our December. Like, what does December hold for us? Yeah, that's it from that deck. That was quick. Let's see here. Oh, it'd help if I knew I could get the darn box open here. Some of these boxes are a little more difficult to open than others, and all of these decks I still have in their original boxes except for the Busiest Goetia, and that makes it a little difficult when doing something live on film like this, where I'm having to get things out of boxes. But yeah, let's see here. What kind of stuff, what kind of energies are we looking at here? What kind of vibe we got going on for our upcoming December? Now, my one complaint about this crystal deck is the fact that it's impossible to shuffle. But let's see here. I know there's one more. Deal with getting those back in their box in a minute, because as I said, they are difficult. And our last but not least, all right, I'll go with it. All right, and now that we've got all of these pulled up, I am going to stretch, and we're going to get into the actual reading portion of this. I'm sorry if the camera angle did change a little bit. I did take my phone off of my tripod for a moment in order to take a picture of the total before I start really moving cards around. So I'm laughing a little bit looking at these because we're going into December, and we have, the celebration card, and I'll get to that, but there's just a few things here that really made me chuckle. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to start here with the tarot cards, because I feel like these ones really kind of set the major theme going here, where the other cards are very much just supplemental and reinforcement. So we've got, to start with, we've got our Queen of Rings. And in the Marigold Tarot, this is the equivalent to the Queen of Pentacles or the Queen of Coins. And every time I'm doing a reading, I really have to take a moment to be like, is this representing a specific person that's coming forward? Is this representing the current whenever it comes to the court cards? Or is it representing like the general feeling of what's going on? Is this what the kind of energy's embodying? And we do have 3 court cards here, and for none of them am I feeling that it's a specific person in this sense. I'm sure there's someone who's going to be like, oh my god, I know exactly who that is, but for me, looking at this spread, it doesn't feel like a specific person. It feels more like the feelings of what's going on right now. And so that Queen of Pentacles is, she's gone through the full range of moving up the suit of coins. She's a strong, stable, like responsible woman. Now, again, this is energy, non-gendered, but trustworthy, and, knows her business, knows how to properly, what's that word? You can tell I don't use it, but it's the one where you try to spread up the load of what you're doing so that you're not the only one carrying the burden. I know there's a specific word for this, and you can tell that I'm terrible at it because I don't remember the specific word for it. But, so the things that really stand out to me about her is the feeling of generosity and giving, which we are going into December. I'll hit on that a little bit more as we're continuing through. But this is a time where a lot of people are feeling more generous, they're feeling more warm to each other, they're feeling more supportive to others in their community because they know how hard it is going back to family that may not always be friendly, or it could be an openly hostile situation. It could be one where you don't want to be there, you're the family black sheep, no one likes you, but you're expected to be there and you have to force yourself to go. And so other people who are understanding that feeling in the community are really feeling that generosity and that, like, I understand, I'm a stable rock, you can come back to me in order to, feel safe again. And one of the things that I think is interesting that comes to me with this is the idea that a lot of these people who don't want to go to these events have to because their financial stability relies on it. They have family members who help them out, or they are currently living with a family member in a situation that isn't ideal. And in order to continue that so that they have, safety of home, so that they have food in their stomach, they have to put themselves in these situations in order to maintain that. And that's a really strong thing here that I'm getting, is that, the status quo relies upon it. And we have Temperance here, which will be coming up a lot in this reading. And as a side note, before I get into it, I really love the fact that represented on here not only is, of course, I have a thing for being like, oh look, it's an angel of death, and it is intended to be an angel of death, but He's also pouring Assam tea between his pitcher and cup there. And I am biased, but Assam tea's the best tea ever, and just give it a shot. Okay, back to temperance. There is a lot of balancing act that has to go on here. We see the balancing act going between the two stones, which I'll again be getting to, but with temperance here, it is, a lot of us have been working on how to assert stronger boundaries and how to be like, no, these are my beliefs, and you need to respect that, the sovereign. And like, we've been working on the standing our ground and not letting other people walk over us, and it's caused a lot of friction and a lot of fights. But right now, we've got this time of big celebration where families are coming together. Families. Trust me, I'll get to it. And, sometimes our stability and our well-being relies upon us walking a center line here. And it sucks. It really does. But it's a time where you need to consider what fight is worth fighting. And, you need to consider you can hold your boundaries and hold your beliefs without making it into a brawl. And that really speaks to the Queen of Cups here, because the Queen of Cups is about compassion and knowing, understanding how to connect with other people, knowing where they're coming from, and also being able to hold that space where it's, you may not agree, but you're not going to lash out. You understand your emotions, you know what's causing them, and you're able to deal with it. And I think it's very, very important here that we've got this understanding of, this is going to be an emotionally high time. This is going to be an emotionally draining time. And we really need to understand, I forgot to do this, but the Queen of Cups. We need to understand when we need to take a break. We need to understand when we need to draw boundaries. We need to understand when we need to go take a breath, and we need to reconnect with that community who is being, who are willing to be there for us and hear us and give us that support when we can't get it in the situations we're in. And so this really plays into our Page of Rings here, who is really, he's contemplating what's going on. He's really, so there's, as he's gazing at this ring, there's a whole lot of looking at it and trying to understand it and trying to find like how it is that he can work within the boundaries that are set for him, and how to work with the resources that he has. So this is a lot of reflection, and it's a lot of reflection of knowing, hey, for those of you who use spoon theory, hey, do I have the spoons for this? What can I do in order to refresh the amount of spoons that I have? What can I do to try to lessen the toll that each of these interactions cause upon my spoons? Because if you do something for yourself where you're able to recover the spoons, you can avoid an explosive interaction later. Or if you do, some veiling work, if you do veiling, or if you do some extra protection work for yourself, before you go into that big family dinner that you want no part of, then it can make it so it costs you less spoons in the end. And so it's really important to look at what you can do with the resources that you have in order to make the best of this situation, because you're having to embody temperance here. You're having to embody this, walking the middle path. And I feel like it's really important now to bring up the crystals here because we've got the first one is red jasper, and this is a stone all about courage, about, you know, knowing how to stand your line and knowing when to fight, about still having passion and kindling that passion. But on the other side here, we have tree agate, which is an incredibly grounding stone. It's very calm and serene. It helps you bring back down and let all of that energy sink out of you so that you aren't holding on to it and just bottling it up. So when you feel icky after having a bad a bad conversation with that uncle you never wanted to see again, grounding is a big thing. And this really reflects temperance again to me, because you have the big bombastic action, and then you have the quiet coming back to grounding, side by side there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move Boone down a little bit so that I can deal with these two cards here. So first, I want to deal with celebration. And as I said, this is December. A lot of people all over the world are celebrating Christmas, whether you believe in Christmas or not, whether you just do the gift giving, hanging out with people during, governmental holidays, or if you actually, partake in any of those traditions, if you do Yule, if you do winter solstice, whatever it is that you do at this time of year, there's a celebration. And so something interesting with the celebration card that I hadn't realized before is that it also has to do with new messages coming in. And if there's things that you've been cultivating, things that you have been, planting the seeds for, it's something that you're really excited about and that still gives you passion. That is something to hold on to, which we have with the Page of Rings here. He's holding on to this thing that is precious, holding it close to him, and it's helping him really reflect and being able to see, okay, what matters. And it's like having something else to focus on that still gives you enough energy to move forward. And the red jasper is not just about fighting, it's also about things that you're passionate about and things that you really enjoy and that really drive you forward. And something that I find interesting is that a lot of times for me, when something's overwhelming, a grounding practice is something that can help really, bring my energy back and get me moving again. And for me, a grounding practice is my practice with working with sigils and making them, crafting them. Also, a grounding practice for me is making prayer cords and doing other woodworking, those sorts of things, where it's something where I'm deeply passionate about it and care about what I'm doing and how it turns out. And because of that, it's something that's very centering to me and helps bring me back into focus when all of this stuff is going on. So next, kind of jumping around, I want to look at the Sovereign. And this one here, I feel, plays heavily into that other side of temperance and our red jasper. The Sovereign is about being your own badass, and it's about, knowing your boundaries, knowing what you stand for, setting those boundaries, and being unafraid to lay down the law as to, what you're okay with and what you're not. And so I know I've done a lot of talking about needing to walk that line, but that doesn't mean you need to sacrifice your boundaries. There are certain things where you're like, no, absolutely not, I'm not comfortable. And the Sovereign's reminding us that that's okay. There's nothing wrong with setting boundaries. Now, there are ways of going about it which make a situation seem more explosive, where someone will feel attacked. And there's some people who, no matter how you set your boundaries, they will always feel attacked. That's not on you, that's on them. But there's a lot of people who are willing to listen if you're willing to stand up and be like, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this. Like, I'm more than willing to spend time with you and to celebrate and enjoy the end of the year, but, X, Y, or Z, I'm not going to do. And so, this card, the Sovereign, I feel is reminding us that for this month, that even as we are having to do all of these required things in the name of celebration, that we are still in control of ourselves. And I think that's really, really important. Really, really important. Let me put an extra point on that. And so, another thing with the Sovereign is, so this deck has where when you're out of balance with something, it also has the what the Sovereign looks like in power versus what the Sovereign looks like unbalanced. And the section for unbalanced for the Sovereign, this card I think is really fascinating because it goes into how you can become almost tyrannical and explosive when it comes to setting your boundaries if you do it a certain way, and how also you can fall completely out of structure. So there's the two sides, where there's the unbalanced Sovereign on the side of too much of this, but then there's also the unbalanced Sovereign where it's not enough of stones don't matter there. But the other side of the unbalanced Sovereign is there's no structure. They don't really have a way to go about respecting their own boundaries, of respecting the things that bring them joy and passion in life, which gives them their own agency. So with this, really coming into this, it's a good idea to try to structure how it's going or how it's going to go, especially if you have to go visit family, where it's you're structuring out, okay, if I am doing this event with family, I'm going to limit it to, I will be there for this many hours. You get me for this many hours and not a minute more. You came up, you spent time with them, you had your celebration, but then you need to retreat. And so setting up those kinds of boundaries still allows you to walk that temperance line of, yes, I'll do this, but I have these stipulations, and to take care of yourself, because over time, like, it might be like when you start out, oh, it's not that draining, but then it quickly ramps up over time as you build up fatigue from being around them for too long. There's like all of these chaotic different parts, especially if you have a big family. And so, creating that structure of, okay, so this day is a me day, and it's just a me day, and no one's stopping that. And it's going to be a time for you to refill your cup and to take care of yourself. And then, like, okay, this day is dedicated to family, and this is the day that they get. And, really working in that structure. Not everyone works great with structure, but I've found a lot of times that structure can really help pull through, like, the more chaotic of situations that you're going into, the more planning you do on your own part to make sure that you get out the other side. And so, Awaken here, this is kind of one of the outlier cards, but at the same time, I kind of see I kind of see where it hooks in here, because the Awaken card is all about really, first of all, Luna moths are lovely. I adore them. But yeah, that's the Luna moth for the Awaken card. And the Awaken card has a lot about, oh yes, you're gonna, see higher heights, you're going to grow, and all of those things. But one thing that's in there that could probably be easily overlooked with this card is that you need to trust your intuition. If your gut is telling you that this situation needs to be shut down, listen to it. If your gut is telling you that, hey, I should lean into this conversation because it is, doing good things, it is, making this bearable, do that. If it's telling you that you need to spend a little bit more time nurturing yourself in what you are doing, listen to it. But the Awaken card also talks about those things that we've been working on, and they're about to open up, they're about to blossom. And those passion projects that we have, the studies that we're doing, and it's asking us to really open up to, okay, what's that new thing that you really wanted to study and haven't done yet? The gift-giving holidays are a really great time for that. And the Page of Cups is really about reevaluation as well. So if you take the time at the end of the year to really look at, okay, where have I gone this whole year in my practice? Like, where have I improved? What have I studied? What have I learned? How much have I grown? And then you can really figure out, okay, what gaps am I missing, or what else do I really want to explore? What's drawing my attention? What gives me life? And so you can tap into these new things, and you can use them as a way of shelter during these times as well. It's like, oh, I have to have this long car ride to go meet with this relative. Well, guess what? You can read a book on a long car ride if you don't get car sick. I love reading in a car. That's a personal thing. Sometimes I find physical books are harder to read in a car. I have a Kindle, and I have the dyslexia font, and it's fantastic. This is another reason why I have so many digital books, and I'll eventually get a hard copy to reference, but when I'm just first reading through it, that font really helps me. And so so this is looking at what are those things that you can do to ground you during this time, and what ways can you enforce your boundaries without completely ruining your home and shelter. And so the demon I drew here, I did kind of laugh about. And when I had my stretch session, I stood up and laughed about it some more, because it's Boone. And these are glossy cards, so they're highly reflective, and there's fingerprints, and I'm so sorry about that. But he is the 26th spirit of the Goetia, and he is Duke Boone. He is, so for some quick little correspondences there, colors green. Dukes are usually a sign of Venus. Sandalwood is the incense. I've done a lot of stuff for Boone that has been featured in my YouTube recently, and I feel like this is almost an outreach of, hey, you've seen a lot of my stuff, would you like to learn more about me? But at the same time, Duke Boone is very heavily invested in the wisdom and knowledge of family that has passed. And so we're at a time where a lot of people are celebrating with family, and there's family that we've all lost. Some recently with everything that's going on, some in the further past. Many of us do have ancestor, veneration practices, or I have started working with ancestors, and Duke Boone is heavily into gathering the dead and helping you get in contact with the dead that you wish to speak to. I find Duke Boone to be a fantastic choice for ancestor work. And he's also about, a lot of people work with him as a money demon, as, someone who finds treasures and prosperity business. He is the patron for my shop. And so there are certain contracts for that. But so this is that gift giving season, and you might find some hidden gems in all of that. You have to sift through a lot of dirt, and there's going to be a lot of spelunking in the mud when dealing with people you don't want to deal with in very energetically draining situations you don't want to be a part of. But you might find that treasure in there, and you might even be able to find ways to connect with ancestors, to connect with deceased relatives that you didn't have before, like being over at a family's house and being like, hey, do you have any of grandma's old stuff? You never know what you'll find. Sometimes, a lot of times, families box up a bunch of trinkets and put them in the attic and don't want to deal with it. And they, yeah, they'll go through and sell the furniture and sell the house and all that stuff, but there's all the little knickknacks in the boxes that no one wants to sort through. So you never know what kind of little things you might find for a relative that would be a perfect sort of anchor for you to start working with them. And maybe even photo albums, good stories of past relatives where it's like, hey, how about you tell me the stories that your great grandma used to tell around the fire? And you can get some really, really cool family folklore that way, where they're like, oh, you want to engage with family? Yeah, let's pull out all the old stuff. Let's try to remember those, nighttime stories we were told, or, those sorts of things, where that right there feels like Boone reminding you that there's treasure even in all the shit. So I think that about covers it. I know I was kind of rambly and back and forth and all over the place, but there you have it. This is our December ahead general reading. If you liked this reading, you can find more content by me on Twitter at Revenant Oracle. I do a lot of midnight shit posting, talking about the new content that I'm working on, polls for what you'd like to see next, and general shenanigans about my practice. On Instagram, we have a lot of photos of spreads talking about decks, intros to videos. That Instagram is going to be Ordo-Sonitus Lux. I also do a lot of photography for the ritual items that I am making and put them up on Instagram as well. We are also on Etsy at Ordo-Sonitus Lux, and that is where you can find readings by me as well as those ritual items that I am making. That is our shop. For now, we are on Etsy. If you want to see more month ahead readings or other kinds of collective readings, go ahead and leave a comment on this video. Like it if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it. If anything really resonated with you, please comment. That is super helpful to all readers in order to be able to know what really hits and know when their intuition was right on. We are doing videos once a week currently. These will be the big videos like this one and like the Alter Spaces video from last week. This week's video is going up on December 1st instead of on Friday like the normal uploads, but after this week, normal upload dates will resume. I really wanted to make sure that this one hit on the first of the month, so if anyone was looking for their good old month ahead forecast, they could find it right then when it's pertinent. Thank you so much